We're talking about designing time. I want to start with a big number. 1,246,133,850. Now that is not the national debt, but it is a loss of another kind that's almost equally significant. That is the number of hours that we collectively waste in unproductive meetings every year. And that's just in the United States. So whether it's your weekly standing update, your quarterly board meeting, your semi-annual offsite, each and every one of you are losing approximately 4 hours every week, 200 hours a year, or close to 5 work weeks of time because you're sitting there in a meeting that you really don't want to be in. It's easy enough to do. This just happened to me a couple weeks ago. I was asked to attend a morning session to talk about the future of a program that I'm very excited about. So I spent a lot of time thinking about different ideas I wanted to share. And when I walked in that morning, what I found was a very long, very detailed agenda that was going to systematically walk through everything that happened in the past year of this program. And about 2 hours into this 3-hour session, I realized any meaningful discussion was going to happen in the overtime portion of the section. You know, after the meeting ended and you're then around the water cooler where the interesting stuff happens. So I tried to stay as long as I could to try and maximize the interesting stuff, and then finally realized I gotta go because I'm going to be late to my next meeting. So I ran out and I'm driving to my next meeting and I started to think, you know what? I'm feeling pretty sad about this because I spent a lot of time thinking about ideas that I wanted to share, and I actually wanted to hear what other people had to share. And then I thought, I'm actually kind of mad about this because everything we talked about during those 3 hours together, I could have read the night before. I didn't need to hear it. I could have read it. And then I thought, you know what, actually, I'm really mad about this because I just lost 4 hours. 4 hours of time that I'm not getting back. And I thought, is there like an 800 number I can call for this? Like, I've just lost my time and I want it back. Is there like a policeman I can call for the crime of those hours that were stolen from me? This was really something that upset me. And I've been to that show. I've seen that movie several times. In fact, I've given it a name. That's called the Muscle Man Meeting, where you try and cram as many pieces of content in a single allotment of time, and you try to strong arm your way through it, which is very similar to a different kind of meeting called the military meeting, where they just run the meeting by the agenda and the time that they scheduled, regardless if you got anything out of it at all. On the other side, we have the let 1,000 flowers bloom kind of meeting, where it's sort of agendaless, it's free, we're going to let everybody share their ideas, it's all good, and we're going to wander through this field of possibility. And you have no idea where you started and where you stopped and where you left, and you're just spinning by the time you leave. And then there's my personal favorite time waster, the groundhog meeting. You know, the conversation you have again and again and again. It's just some awful form of deja vu, and you just think, how did I end up here? Didn't we just talk about this? So it's not hard to see that collectively this wastes 1.3 billion of our hours. But even more upsetting than the hours that we've lost are the opportunities that we've not yet achieved. The fabulous ideas that were never sparked, the collaborations that were never formed, and the amazing talent that was never mobilized to do something brilliant, something breakthrough, something bold. That is the real loss behind these 1.3 billion hours. I spend my time teaching graduate students and executives how to use visual and design thinking to solve complex problems. And increasingly, we're finding that data and spreadsheets are not going to get us where we need to go. We actually need to have meaningful conversations that are discovery-oriented to try to get to new insights. So I spend a lot of time thinking about how to get more meaning from our time. How do we do that? I think one of the secret comes from one of my early design inspirations, Don Norman. He wrote a book 25 years ago called The Design of Everyday Things. This was a watershed book in the design movement. And what he said quite clearly is that design is not making things look beautiful or aesthetically pleasing. Design is all about usability. Can we actually use the product that we spent good money to do? And so when we're sitting there frustrated that we can't actually get to the thing that we want to get to, as simple as opening up a certain package, that is not our fault. It is not because we are lazy or incompetent. It is because we were not designed to be successful. And if you think about what happens when we're sitting in those meetings and it's all we can do to not like pick up our phone and start texting and doing like the real work under the table, it's not because you're lazy or incompetent. It's because the meeting has failed you. You have not been set up for success to use all of your talent and all of your brain. And I think there's a lot we can learn about the brilliant products that we now have enriching our lives every day. We don't just own these products. We love these products. We evangelize these products. Can you imagine coming out of your next meeting being an evangelist for where you just spend your time? You are not going to believe this meeting I just went to. It was amazing. I think that's possible. But we just need to think differently about how we design that time. It's really not about meeting management. That is the wrong frame. It's really about designing meaningful conversations. And I think each and every one of us here has the toolkit to do it. We just need to think differently about how we apply them. You don't need to be a designer to design meaningful conversations. I'm going to share with you 2 big secrets that's going to help you start doing this better, starting on Monday. The first thing you need to know is that designers understand that their job is to make your job possible, is to provide functional utility. They're not designing for them, they're designing for you. And if you think about the functional utility that we need to get out of conversations, it starts with a core purpose. I have studied hundreds of conversations, and I can tell you that most of them don't have a core purpose, and that the job that conversations need to do has changed. It used to be we used to get together and just update each other. We don't need to do that anymore. We need to think backwards from the minute after the meeting ends. Let's say it's 5:01 to say what has happened as a result of being in this conversation. What has the participant got? What use have I delivered to them? And there are really only 3 kinds. The first one is to actually build understanding. I'm walking around with information, you have information, and you have information. But we all have different information. And until we figure out how to share that information and build a common understanding, that's when we really start to have clarity on what it is that we're trying to solve. And once we have that clarity, we can then start to look at potential options. We can look at shaping choices, concrete, discrete possibilities that we can go and analyze and test. And third, and only after we've done the first 2, are we ready to make decisions. But the problem is we have been told that the goal of every meeting is to get to next steps. Let's get the decision. So we rush through the first 2 to get to the end. And we basically try and find our way as quickly as we can to a decision. But if we don't take time to do the first 2, to find the purpose of building understanding and shaping choices, we end up in a groundhog situation where we've all agreed, but we don't really know what we agreed to. So we have to go back and talk about what we agreed to. And then we have to talk about what we're actually thinking about what we agreed to. Each one of these requires a different design. And if somebody says we're going to do all 3 in one, just say no. I just saved you 4 hours of time right there. The next thing that designers understand is that it's actually not only about the utility of something, it's also about the emotional connection. The utility involved is the feelings we have when we're in that conversation. And we spend most of our time thinking about, when we're designing a meeting, how do we get the feelings out? But this is your secret weapon, because you absolutely need feelings. And they happen the moment you walk into a room. This is something that you can think about, how to get people in an expansive and creative mode. Because most of the times we invite people to come to a meeting, and we find the only conference room that's available, and we have no idea that when somebody walks into a room that looks like this, what their brain is really feeling is this. They're experiencing nothing but constraints. And then somebody says, we're going to be creative today. Let's do it. And you're thinking, I'm going to get that cookie and get out of here because I don't want to be there and there's no way I'm able to be creative. So we need to think differently about the kinds of materials and environments we create to allow people to do their best thinking. We need to give them mechanisms to capture their ideas and share it with others, visibly, immediately, and not just let all that waste go through us. Beyond that first impression, great designers understand that emotion happens over time. They use things like journey maps to proactively say, what happens as people continue to use the products that I've developed for them? And they can do that, and they can actually think about it as a beginning, middle, and end, making very sure that when they finish using that product, they're much happier when they start, and so they come back for more. But if you think about the emotion utility around most meetings, it sort of looks like this. It's intentionally boxed out of the room. And so what happens is our meetings are literally lifeless. There is nothing of interest there. But you know what? If you don't design emotion into your meeting, it's going to design you. And you're going to have people leaving your meetings feeling sad and mad and very mad. And then when they come back, they're just a little bit skeptical of what you have to do for them. And this starts a cycle of where all of that lost hope and opportunity goes. If you proactively think about how to actually build emotion into your conversation about where the high points are, where people are excited, and where the low points are, and where they're nervous and feeling vulnerable about the uncertainties involved, this is where the real insight comes in. This is where the meaning comes in. This is where the possibility comes in. This is where you get breakthrough ideas. But this is not a crapshoot. You can design this into it. You just need to think backwards about where are going to be the peaks and valleys of the energy, where's going to be the highs and lows of what people care about, and you need to be there to capture it for them and not let it happen to you. In a world where we're facing increasingly complex problems, like the environment and education, core issues of safety, and increasing natural disasters, I believe that designing strategic conversations is our most important leadership skill. We cannot afford to let those 1.3 billion hours get away from us. And we definitely cannot afford to have the hope lost from all of the brilliant minds that want so badly to help solve these problems. I believe our challenges deserve better use of our time. I believe that designing time for meaning and not management is an idea that's worth sharing. Thank you very much.